There are many other...
This is right, erupt.
Hello and welcome to WION Live Broadcast from London. I'm Ollie Barrett, and let's start with a look at the top stories this hour.
2 cases of Omicron have been detected in Karnataka so far through the genome sequencing effort of INSACOG Consortium.
2 cases of the Omicron variant are reported in the southern Indian state of Karnataka. India's health ministry says both patients are in quarantine. The head of the United Nations slams what he calls travel apartheid. Antonio Guterres condemns travel restrictions targeting southern African nations as a form of racist travel segregation. A senior US State Department official says Washington would very soon announce new sanctions against Belarus over the migrant crisis on the EU's border. An exchange of fire between Iranian forces and the Taliban at Iran's eastern border with Afghanistan. The Iranian Foreign Ministry says the situation has been resolved. The US Supreme Court is expected to uphold a Mississippi law that bars abortion after 15 weeks of pregnancy, even in cases of rape or incest. And the top 3 contenders for the English Premier League title pull further away from the chasing pack. Chelsea, Manchester City and Liverpool all register wins in midweek action.
What a fabulous hit from a near prohibitive angle. Diogo Jota, hotter and hotter.
The world is racing to identify infections linked to the new Omicron variant. We've had that confirmation that India has its first 2 confirmed cases. The number of countries with confirmed Omicron cases stands at 25 at least as of now. The new mutation, which is potentially more transmissible, was first discovered in South Africa and has since spread across borders. So far, 70 countries and territories have imposed travel restrictions, with dozens of them blocking African nations. The Secretary-General of the United Nations has likened these restrictions to apartheid, calling the travel bans unacceptable.
But what is unacceptable is when we have now this virus everywhere. What is unacceptable is to have one part of the world that is one of the most vulnerable parts of the world economy condemned to a lockout when they were the ones that revealed the existence of a new variant that, by the way, already existed in other parts of the world, including in Europe, as we know. So this is a very strong appeal that I launch, appeal to common sense. We have the instruments to have safe travel. Let's use those instruments to avoid this kind of, allow me to say, travel apartheid, which I think is unacceptable.
South African scientists discovered the new variant last week. This week it was confirmed the variant is present in the Netherlands and was before it was discovered in South Africa.
C'est une stigmatisation qui ne se justifie pas.
We vigorously condemn these unfair measures. It's a form of stigmatization which cannot be justified, neither scientifically nor on the grounds of reason logically. We are condemning a country for having been transparent because its experts have worked to tirelessly inform the international community of the emergence of a new variant.
Africa is the least immunised continent against COVID-19 in the world, with only 6% of the total population fully vaccinated. The President of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, has expressed anger at the way the world's treated his country since discovering the Omicron variant.
To us, it amounts like discrimination against a country like ours and some countries in Southern Africa. In fact, we should be applauded as South Africa for having alerted the world about this variant that is now beginning to spread around the world.
The UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres says the people of Africa cannot be blamed for low levels of vaccination.
Even with the last announcements that were made, the people of Africa cannot be blamed for the immorally low level of vaccinations available to them, nor should they be collectively punished for identifying and sharing crucial science and health information with the world. With a virus that is truly borderless, travel restrictions that isolate any one country or region are not only deeply unfair and punitive, they are ineffective.
Well, our correspondent Kalden Ongmu is joining us live now from Johannesburg. Kalden, can you give us an update on South Africa's new cases and how is the government gearing up for this latest wave?
Yes, as scientists and health experts battle to get more information on the new variant, the countries around the world are racing to identify how many cases of the Omicron variant they have. So far, at least 20 countries have confirmed that they have the variant. In South Africa, the new cases have doubled in the last 24 hours to 8,561 and reporting 28 new deaths. This is an extremely sharp rise in infections in a short space of time. If cases continue to climb, we can expect to enter a fourth wave of infections within the next few days. Experts have warned, saying 90% of the people that have tested positive are carrying the Omicron variant.
Well, Kalden, at least 25 countries now have this new variant. We've seen reports of Nigeria disclosing a case after retrospective genome sequencing. So how is the South African government reacting to all of that?
So Africa's most populated country, Nigeria's National Public Health Institute, confirmed that its first case of Omicron was actually found in a sample from October, way before the variant was identified and disclosed to the world last week. South African experts say that the country is not in a competition with anyone, but they are in a race against time to fight the new variant. They say whether the variant comes from Africa or the European Union or the Asia, it's time to escalate the work and be transparent with one another as the cases worldwide is increasing.
Well, the list of countries with confirmed Omicron cases is growing by the day. That list now includes, as of today, India and Singapore. It's the most heavily mutated version discovered so far. As a result, in many countries, mask mandates and travel restrictions are back, and nations are adding or considering vaccine mandates.
25 countries have reported the presence of the new COVID mutation. Latest of them is the United States. The first known Omicron case in America was a fully vaccinated person in California who recently traveled to South Africa and returned on the 22nd of November. The individual tested positive 7 days after returning to the States.
The individual is self-quarantining, and all close contacts have been contacted, and all close contacts thus far have tested negative. The individual was fully vaccinated and experienced mild symptoms, which are improving at this point. So this is the first confirmed case of COVID-19 caused by the Omicron variant detected in the United States. And as all of you know, because we've been discussing this, we knew that it was just a matter of time before the first case of Omicron would be detected in the United States.
The Omicron variant has also been detected in West Asia. Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates reported their first Omicron variant cases on Wednesday. Some of the other countries that have reported cases on the variant so far: Austria, Belgium, Czech Republic, Denmark, Germany, Italy, Netherlands, Portugal, Spain, Sweden, Australia, Brazil, United Kingdom, among several others. The World Health Organization chief has said that the world should not be surprised by the Omicron variant. Dr. Tedros said that the WHO is taking the Omicron variant seriously and that every country should do the same, but cautioned against blanket travel bans.
We call on all countries to take rational, proportional risk reduction measures in keeping with international health regulations. This includes measures to delay or reduce the spread of the new variant, such as screening of passengers prior to traveling and/or upon arrival, or the application of quarantine to international travelers. Blanket travel bans will not prevent the international spread of Omicron, and they place a heavy burden on lives and livelihoods.
On one side, as nations suspend travel from countries in southern Africa, France has announced that it will allow flights from southern Africa to resume, but primarily for returning French and European Union citizens, adding that these flights will be operated under very strict conditions. It was just a month ago that countries had accepted living with the virus. People were getting vaccinated. Life seemed to be somewhat normal. Now, on the other hand, there is a new mutant strain circulating, and on the other, a global surge in infections. With nearly 5,300 new cases, South Korea reported its highest daily COVID cases tally. In view of the spike, authorities have halted quarantine exemptions for fully vaccinated inbound travelers for 2 weeks. This in a bid to fend off the Omicron variant. The measure came after South Korea confirmed its first 5 cases of the Omicron variant late on Wednesday. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Europe was already facing a spike in COVID cases even before Omicron was discovered. Germany is considering tougher restrictions for unvaccinated citizens, and the European Commission chief says it may be time for the mandating of vaccines.
Europe is experiencing a surge in COVID-19 cases. A number of newly identified cases are of the recently identified Omicron variant. The European Commission says that the European Union needs daily review of its travel restrictions and rapid deployment of vaccine booster doses. Now, this is required to limit entry and protect people from the new variant of concern. European Commission President says that the bloc needs to step up vaccination campaign. As of now, 66% of the total European population is vaccinated. Children between 5 to 11 years of age will be eligible to receive COVID vaccines from December 13th.
1/3 of the European population is not vaccinated. These are 150 million people. This is a lot. And not each and everyone can be vaccinated. So there are very small children, for example, or people with special medical conditions. But the vast majority could. And therefore, I think it is understandable and appropriate to lead this discussion now, how we can encourage and potentially think about mandatory vaccination within the European Union. This needs discussion. This needs a common approach, but it is a discussion that I think has to be led.
Meanwhile, Germans are torn over whether mandatory vaccinations are the way out of the pandemic. The confusion remains even as the country reports the highest number of COVID-19 deaths since mid-February.
In the beginning, I was skeptical because I believe everyone should be able to decide for his own body. But now, unfortunately, it appears there is no other way out of this pandemic.
German federal and regional governments have agreed to take action to counter the fourth wave of the virus. The plan of action includes stepping up vaccination campaign and restricting contact, especially for the unvaccinated people. German leaders have been criticized for acting too late. They have now vowed to take firm decisions while dealing with the rapidly evolving Omicron crisis. In Spain, people queued up to get their COVID-19 vaccines. Authorities are stepping up efforts to vaccinate those who have still not received their jabs. According to a recent survey, about a third of the 1.6 million adults in Spain remain unvaccinated. Mandatory COVID-19 passes remain a controversial issue in the country.
New variants appear, but in any case, awareness is greater, and I think this is a very important factor, and the buck will not stop until we are all vaccinated.
Meanwhile, Poland's Prime Minister has made an emotional appeal to all citizens to get vaccinated against COVID. Morawiecki has received a booster shot himself. His plea comes as the country witnessed 570 COVID deaths in a single day. At the moment, only 54% of the country's population is fully vaccinated. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Clashes have erupted along the Afghanistan-Iran border. Taliban forces and Iranian soldiers reportedly opened fire at each other, but the skirmish led to no casualties and was later described as a misunderstanding. The clashes took place near Nimroz province in Afghanistan. Iran's foreign ministry later said it was a miscommunication between border residents that caused the fighting, and the ministry made no reference to the Taliban. Iran shares a 900-kilometre border with Afghanistan and does not recognise the Taliban government formed after the group took control of the country.
Alhamdulillah.
Well, the Taliban issued a statement saying everything was under control and efforts will be made to prevent such incidents from happening again. Multiple videos surfaced on Wednesday in which Taliban troops can be seen mobilising, gunfire can be heard, and Iranian forces can be seen firing artillery shells in response to Taliban fire. Afghan local media also reported that Taliban forces had captured 5 outposts of the Iranian forces. Iranian media denied those reports, saying their forces have complete control of the border. Our Pakistan bureau chief Anas Malik sent this report.
Well, a clash between the Iranian border forces and the Taliban border guards erupted yesterday in Kang district in Nimroz province, that's in the southwestern part of Afghanistan, where what is now being confirmed that at least 3 Taliban soldiers have been killed. Taliban reinforcements were called in. Use of heavy artillery was also seen in the videos that have been circulated by pro-Taliban people from Afghanistan, and they show that the amount of ammunition and equipment that had been used now. The Taliban's foreign ministry and the Iran foreign ministry both have termed the incident as a misunderstanding. However, the exact nuances as to what led to this clash, this fierce clash rather, is still unclear. What we understand is that this these issues, the border issues, had been ongoing for a while, not just from the Taliban rule, but in the previous government time as well. But now the dynamics of Afghanistan has changed, and Taliban, who are known to fight and implement things by virtue of force, they would be retaliating to any what they call as provocation from any of the borders, regardless of which border it would be that it be on the southern border, eastern border, or on the northern border as well. Anas Malik in Islamabad, Pakistan, for WION, World is One.
The Women's Tennis Association has suspended all tennis tournaments in China amid ongoing concerns about the well-being of Chinese tennis star Peng Shuai. She had disappeared from public view after accusing a Chinese official of sexual harassment. The International Olympic Committee has held a second video call with the Chinese tennis player. Let's take a look now at the timeline.
One of the biggest tennis stars of China, former world #1 in doubles, a winner of the French Open and the Wimbledon.
The former world #1 tennis player, Peng Shuai, has accused a top Chinese government official of sexual assault.
Former Vice Premier of China.
Announcing it on a post on social media on November 2nd.
I never consented that afternoon, crying all the time.
That post was censored and removed from social media platforms in the country, and the player disappeared from public view.
I'm really sad about it.
Honestly, it's shocking,
Very strange situation.
The WTA and leading players from both the men's and women's tours, including Serena Williams, Naomi Osaka, and Novak Djokovic, demanded assurances of Shuai's safety.
The whole community, tennis community, needs to back her up and her family and make sure that she's safe and sound.
Chinese state media released videos of the player at various events in Beijing 2 weeks ago. And the International Olympic Committee also released a picture of the player in a conversation with President Thomas Bach. The WTA had continued to demand independent verification of Shuai's well-being, and Chairman Steve Simon has issued a strong statement late on Wednesday. In the statement, the chairman says, "The WTA has been clear on what is needed here, and we repeat our call for a full and transparent investigation without censorship into Peng Shuai's sexual assault accusations. None of this is acceptable, nor can it become acceptable. If powerful people can suppress the voices of women and sweep allegations of sexual assault under the rug, then the basis on which the WTA was founded, equality for women, would suffer an immense setback. I will not and cannot let that happen to the WTA and its players." China hosted 9 events, including the lucrative WTA finals in 2019, before the pandemic brought an end to all tennis activities in the country. The combined prize money was in excess of 30 million, which added up to a substantial part of the tour's revenue. The tour maintains that it will do everything possible to protect its players and called on the Chinese government to take steps to legitimately address the issue. Simon said, and I quote, "I don't see how I can ask our athletes to compete there when Peng Shuai is not allowed to communicate freely and has seemingly been pressured to contradict her allegation of sexual assault. Given the current state of affairs, I am also greatly concerned about the risks that all of our players and staff could face if we were to hold events in China in 2022. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Now, this week in Israel and around the world, the festival of Hanukkah is being celebrated, marking the triumph of the Jewish people over an adversary over 2,000 years ago, the Seleucid Greeks. Our correspondent Jodie Cohens sent this report.
Hanukkah, otherwise known as the Festival of Lights, remembers the victory of the Jews against the ancient Greeks, who tried and failed to convert the Jews in the Holy Land to worshipping Greek idols. After they managed to reclaim the temple in Jerusalem, 1 jug of oil was left with which to rededicate the temple to God. That was only enough oil for 1 day, but it burned for 8. To remember these miracles, on Hanukkah, candles are lit on a menorah every day for 8 days. The festival is full of celebration, but with the new Omicron variant, people in Israel are being required to use the green pass for gatherings of more than 50 people inside. However, this hasn't stopped the festivities. For example, every boy at this yeshiva or Jewish Institute of Learning has been vaccinated and has a green pass. So candle lighting, singing and dancing can continue there as it usually does on Hanukkah. As well as lighting oil candles, Jews eat foods cooked in oil, like fried latka potato pancakes and sufganiyot, or donuts. Today in Israel, Hanukkah has become a donut feast, with shops vying to outdo each other in their creativity and colour, with countless flavours available and bakeries much busier than usual. With so many different aspects of this holiday, I asked some people what Hanukkah means to them.
It means a lot. Gathering, family gatherings, donuts.
That means experiencing Hanukkah where it actually happens, which is really amazing.
Hanukkah for me is the meaning that we can do everything we believe in. We can challenge everything and win. And we stay here, even although all the things that happen to the Jewish people, we're still here and we will be here until God will save the world.
From the Abu Dhabi, a date-flavoured donut to mark the first anniversary of the Abraham Accords, to the Bennett, a mix of sweet, spicy, sour and salty to represent the diverse coalition government headed by Naftali Bennett, Hanukkah has become a festival of donuts, lighting candles and family time. But its underlying message, like that of Diwali celebrated in India and many parts of the globe, is to bring light to the world. With the new Omicron variant, that light is much needed. This is Jodie Cohen for WION World is One.
That's what we have for today's show. Thanks very much for being with us. As ever, I'm Ollie Barrett. Do stay tuned to WION World is One.
This is right, Arab.